Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable radio talk show.
Some might call it Harry Carey. I'm wondering if Donald Trump is committing self-destruction in real time. Donald Trump's conflicts keep piling up. Does Trump really think he's Jesus? Does Trump really think the war's over? Trump flips on FISA 702, and tax day hits Americans hard. Wow. Have we got a barn burner today? Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman. I've got James Edwards with me, well-known talk host in his own right, thepoliticalcesspool.org, well-known author and political commentator. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Sam, it is great to be back with you as always. The calendar has smiled on us providentially in the last few months. I recall we were together, you and I, on your show. It just so happened to be my regularly scheduled appearance fell on New Year's Eve day on December the 31st. Great year in review show we had, and today it's tax day. So I think people say that every day henceforth is the money you get to keep. We've been working for the government up until April the 15th, although I like the way you put it. We're all slaves now.
I wish you were right. Hold on. That's the day you have to pay. But it's much longer than that until you paid off your portion of the government, James.
Interesting. Well,
it's tax day, but it ain't tax freedom day. Go look up tax freedom day. We'll get the exact date of that. Maybe Liz or somebody can pipe that down our ear. Look up when is tax freedom day 2026, because it's never the day you have to actually pay. It's later than that because Trump talks the talk but can't walk the walk. Tax day still hits Americans hard, ladies and gentlemen. Trump promises tax freedom, but tax day says otherwise. My question is, he says, hey, I got the ERS cranked up, meaning tariffs. Wonderful. Love it. Good. But he hinted that he was going to get rid of the IRS, and he did some of the tips thing, and he did this, and he did that. But now taxes are so convoluted, people don't even know what they owe. And for the most part, when you look at the war and you look at all the cost of everything going up and inflation continuing to rear its ugly head, James, you end up going, any gains we might have got from our, quote, tax breaks is already obliterated, and then some. And no real walk of getting rid of the IRS, James. Welcome. What do you say?
The affordability crisis, we've been talking about this for months here, is a very real thing, and I am a little bit hesitant to put it on whatever president is in the Oval Office at that time. All the Trump supporters were doing it to Biden, and in many ways deservingly so, but now, of course, and equally deservingly so, at least with regards to the price at the pump, the affordability crisis has not been arrested. It's only continuing to spiral out of control. And between taxes, between real estate costs, between the cost of insurance, if you can even afford to have it, fast food, gas, you name it.
I can't afford
all
to
out
have
of control.
I had it before, but then at the end of the year, 2025, my insurance was threatening to go up like 73%, and I just couldn't do it, so I canceled it. Can't afford it, James.
We're flying blind right now on that too, and at the end of the day, you can have your issues that are most near and dear to your heart. But when it gets down to it, most Americans are going to look after number one, and you understand that. You understand that you have to provide, as a father, Sam, we understand we have to provide for our families, and you're going to be, at the end of the day, that's the issue you're most going to be voting on the most. And with Trump, I mean, he had in no uncertain terms sort of flirted with the idea of abolishing the IRS entirely, and replacing it with tariffs and so on and so forth. Of course, that always seemed a little outlandish, a little bit too good to be true, as a lot of his promises have been. And it doesn't look like that's going to materialize. And then everybody's paying the piper today or a couple of days ago when I sent mine in. And it's just a terrible, dreadful thing every year to have to do that. And then for what? For what? It's certainly your local taxes that are paving your roads and funding your schools. I mean, what are we paying these federal income taxes for?
Who wants to fund the schools in the first place? I don't. They're
well,
come on now.
Be that as it may, and you're exactly right, of course. But for your local services, your local taxes pay that. I mean, the only thing I can imagine that federal income taxes are paying are what? Welfare, corporate welfare, bailing out banks, airlines, things like that, and getting into wars that people voted against and that Trump wouldn't be in office had he said, I'm running to do what Donald Rumsfeld and George W. Bush couldn't do. I'm going to get us into Iran.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I told you this was going to be a barn burner broadcast, and here it goes. So Trump talks the talk, can't seem to walk the walk when it comes to taxes. Happy tax day, file yours or go to jail is kind of the deal. Many people are pushing for a tax revolt. I don't blame them, but what we don't want to do is be picked off one at a time and end up going to jail. I've got friends that have done that, and it's not pretty when that happens. But listen, did Trump really post a photo, an AI photo of himself as Jesus? Yes, and he trashed the Pope. And now I'm calling it Trump's faith firestorm, the AI Jesus. Then he praised Allah. Then he ran around and said, no, that's just me being a doctor. I was just trying to, be a doctor. Critics are blasting Donald over this. He said, no, I was just kind of trying to be a doctor, helping the sick and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, is this guy into intentional self-destruction in real time? Is he delusional? Or is there a method to the madness? Everybody always says, no, Sam, listen, Trump's playing like 90D chess, baby. Look, he's so far ahead of you, you can't even imagine. I mean, this guy, and I'm going, is this really 3D chess plus? Is this really, or is this guy just delusional? Or what on earth is happening, James?
Well, of course, Christ is called the great physician, so maybe that's what Trump was stabbing at there.
I'm just saying, how can you I would never intentionally let a picture like that fly of me because I don't believe that kind of stuff. It's salacious and crazy, but you let a picture fly like that. Do you really believe that kind of stuff, or is it just meant just to stir up controversy? What do you think the method of the madness is, or is there one?
There's so many great memes. Memes have just the right has just an incredible sense of humor.
Over, baby.
They really have. Since 2015 and 16, the memes on the right have just been slap your knee hilarious. And I've already seen one circulating on social media. You know how Spirit Halloween always has the Halloween costumes, and it'll have a photo of the costume with its description. It has a picture of what is obviously Jesus Christ, but the costume says doctor. But as a result of this thing that Trump has done,
dressed up as a doctor now. There you go.
You're wearing a toga and a sash.
I don't know if Donald's just doing this for controversy. Is he trying to self-destruct? I mean, he keeps saying the war's over, James, but I don't see that we're even close to that either.
Well,
I just don't even understand. Is he self-destructing?
Well, a lot of this was always a feature rather than a bug when this outlandish, boisterous rhetoric and boorish behavior was directed towards our enemies. I cheered along with it. I enjoyed it. I loved to see them getting a comeuppance and being mocked. And that was always sort of like something that made Trump unique. But here recently, he has turned all of that on people like Tucker Carlson and indeed his very own base, saying the people who don't want him to go to war, which was a foundational pillar of his original campaign and all the way through the Kamala campaign, a foundational pillar along with immigration, stay out of unnecessary wars, secure the border. That was basically...
And we're going to cut expenses and downsize government. I mean, what was that thing called?
Well, whatever that sounds like.
What was that thing called that was going to cut all the government and everything?
Oh, Doge.
Yeah, Doge was going to take care of it. I mean, those are the three pillars. Doge, take action, no wars, right? And border and the largest deportation in history. Most of all that stuff, James, hardly any of it's even come to pass. Maybe you could say the border has been locked down at best.
Yes. Well, I think you can say that. I'll get into that in just 1 second. But I would say about Iran, it really has. I have talked to so many people, and having done this for now 22 years on AM commercial talk radio, Sam, you go back even longer than that. I have never seen a month that has been so bizarre in terms of how do you even cover it. For instance, just last week, since you and I last talked 2 weeks ago, there was this ultimatum where Trump was going to eradicate the entire civilization of Iran. He basically said, we're going to wipe this entire civilization off the map. And then just 2 hours later, you go to, we have a great peace deal in play with these wonderful Iranians. And then
Vance walks out and says, we don't have a deal.
Well, he was basically, I heard Vance was on the phone with Netanyahu the entire time. And then that whole thing just imploded. And then you've got this bizarre thing where you're going to blockade the entire Strait of Hormuz. and not allow any traffic in or out. And of course, that was another bluff that hasn't really manifested. And then, but to really secure the strait, you would have to get the American naval fleet outside of the range of Iranian missiles, which circle about 1,000-mile radius from the nation of Iran. So you'd have to basically just shut off the entire Persian Gulf, not just that little bottleneck called the Strait of Hormuz. So none of it has made sense. It has been wildly erratic and volatile. It is definitely disconcerting that a major president, I mean, I guess you could say the president of the most powerful country in the world in some ways, is behaving this way. And
we used to be the most powerful country in the world. Now we're finding out it's not really true. That's been a lie, just like the Fort Knox audit, right?
Well, I don't know who would be more powerful per se, but yes, I mean, in terms of
all they
power,
got to do is gang up on us, James.
Well, one thing,
you might be the toughest guy on the planet, but if I get 100 teenagers after you, hey, at some point, just overwhelming. Reality,
well, there is
right?
that, and then America has never done well. I mean, you're going back hundreds of years. The United States has never done well. Russia either. I mean, none of these superpowers or none of these, hegemonic powers in their area or even in the world have done well with guerrilla warfare. And Iran doesn't fight a traditional war like.
Why would they? You win that way, just like the American revolutionists back in the day, the Continental Army. They didn't fight a traditional war either, but they won. So all I'm telling you is it's a very strange thing. Now, James, just a question for you. You know, if we're going to lock down the Straits of Hormuz entirely, they're going to lock it down. We're going to lock it down. So now it's got a double blockade, whatever you want to call this thing. It's almost like whose blockade's the real blockade? Will the real Slim Shady please stand up? Or, I don't even know the agenda, because if we're helping them block now, are we helping them block the Straits of Hormuz? No, we're blocking them and they're blocking us. So anyway. But how much of our oil, James, do you even know this? How much oil in American usage of oil do we get from Iran? Do you know the answer?
I don't know the answer, but I believe that it's far less than people think. Am I right about that? Answer? Yeah, please.
0. So, my friend, why do we even give a rip? And why are we even over there? What do we? Is it the oil? Is it open the Straits of Hormuz? Is it we got to stop them from getting a nuke? No nuke for them. But 9 nations have nukes. 5 nations got it before there were even rules about it. 4 nations have received it kind of after the rules by the global, whatever you want to call it. Player nations have decided no. The war began February the 28th, folks. Donald said it would take 2 or 3 weeks back then. On March 31st, he said, hey, 2 to 3 weeks. But here's the problem.
Well,
Trump's 2 to 3 weeks war promise is already approaching week 7. And now he says it's going to end this time for real. But he doesn't have an agreement on the table. He'll come back and say, we're in talks. Iran will go, no, we're not.
Well, I can tell you what's going on with that. I can tell you what's going on with that is the New York Times, forgive me for even citing them, but they are right about this, I do believe.
Well, they were going to implode according to Donald, right?
Well, I wish, but that's a separate issue.
He said, and as far as I understand, their usership or readership has just increased on the digital side big time. So he's blown them up into a rock star newspaper now.
Well, I'll cite them on this. They had an article just a couple of weeks ago before all of this began. And if you want to know why the United States is taking the action that it is in Iran, it's not because of oil. It is not because we've only been hurt at the pumps. We've only been hurt as a result of this. Whether we get oil from them or not, it's still driving up the price per barrel. It's not because they're about to get a nuke, as they've been saying for 30 years. They've always been a week away from getting a nuke for 30 years. It is because there is a particular lobby that has an overwhelming amount of control over the United States Congress. Pat Buchanan called it out in the early 90s. It has not changed. It's the Israeli lobby. And they want us to be in Iran to wipe out one of their enemies. And to go back to the New York Times, there was an article that stated quite factually that in February, Bibi Netanyahu met with Trump in the Situation Room, which was very unusual for a visiting head of state or dignitary. I
gotta let Stan Bushman meet with Donald in the Situation Room.
But they met in the Situation Room, and Netanyahu was flanked by some of his military leaders and some.
You know what I'd tell him if I was in the Situation Room, don't you, James?
We got a situation?
I'd say we got a situation, and first off, you're not Jesus, bro.
we do need to get back to that.
You're not Jesus, number one. And number two, You got to get rid of the IRS, buddy. If you're going to crank up the ERS, you got to get rid of the IRS. Remember, you're supposed to get rid of 2 provisions for every one you put in place. Remember that plan? So we're going to get rid of the IRS and what? Since you cranked up the ERS, what other item would we get rid of, James? The IRS and what else? Oh, the education department. Did that ever? So we crank up the ERS and we get rid of 2, the IRS and the education department. Right?
Yeah,
Except we have one, but we don't have a relief on the other 2.
He gave Vince McMahon's wife the mandate. You have a job, and your job is to put yourself out of a job by dismantling the Department of Education. That, along with abolishing the IRS. I mean, yes, there have been a lot of big-time promises.
That was like professional wrestling. None of it's real.
Well, yeah. Well, that's why I guess maybe that's why she was put into to the spot. But back to tax day, I just got to say, I know we're bouncing around a little bit here, but it is all interrelated in a way. I got to just make mention, a quick shout out to our friend Payman Montaheda for getting on with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene just did a big interview with Payman and Joe Bannister, a former IRS agent that has been reaching hundreds of thousands of people, maybe even more than a million now. So that definitely gives that particular movement some social currency, that you have Marjorie Taylor Greene giving them some press right here before tax day. But back very quickly to Iran.
I'd love to, and I support them in drop kicking the IRS to the goalposts of non-existence. The problem is, look, they can pick us off one at a time. So, to me, what needs to happen is you need to get a class action lawsuit by millions of Americans. You need to get the right attorney groups to be in place, and you need to say we simply won't pay taxes until this case is decided. You could do it right, you could do it hardcore, you could do it, but the problem is the courts will never go along. Okay, we've been at this trough forever, and they're going to hold on to that greedy, in my opinion, ill-gotten gain. As long as they can pick us all off one at a time and force us to comply. I mean, that's really the bottom line. Is it's dishonest and it needs to be shut down. But again, if Trump won't shut it down, I don't think any president in our future will.
No, I don't think so. And then, of course, I mean, we have to remember that the Founding Fathers didn't institute a federal income tax. This didn't come along until the early 1900s. So for the majority of its existence, the United States made it just well and fine. You could argue even better without this oppressive slave, basically modern-day slavery.
Destroying slavery, yeah.
There you go. But I just wanted to finish this thought very quickly on Netanyahu. So the New York Times had written that he did meet with Trump in the Situation Room, and there is where Trump was sold by the Israeli military brass and by Netanyahu himself that this would be a quick war. This is how they would do it. And I believe that is very plausible. I do believe that Trump probably believed that he could do something quickly. I mean, you can see the reticence. I mean, the wildly erratic actions by Trump, even going back to last summer. They bombed and they got out. They've been trying to pull out here. I mean, they're all over the map. I don't think Trump really is fully invested in going into Iran. But again, you can't serve 2 masters, and this lukewarm thing is really just awful.
It really is. And again, I don't mean just to be attacking President Donald Trump everywhere, but you know what? The more he talks, this term is disaster. Okay? I mean, I don't know how long this war is going to last, but I know this. Every time I hear it's almost over, I hear that we're ratcheting it up more. Every time I hear their talks, I hear from other sources, there's no talks. And the problem is it's a trust issue. Okay? You can't trust President Trump. Let me give you a quick example. 702 of FISA, that's spying on you and me, where George Bush first claimed, no, I'm just spying on the bad guys internationally. Turned out to be, well, it's really domestically and it's really everybody. And then Congress, instead of prosecuting George Bush for it, like they should have, and impeached him and everything else, they basically went, oh, no harm, no foul. We love it. Let's do it. So then FISA has been the case forever. It's these special courts that, you don't get a real day in court. You get these special manipulated courts. 702 is the section that says they can spy on everybody. By the way, you don't need to spy on me, folks. You can download it at libertyroundtable.com. Just so you know, 702, folks. I'll even record it for you, and you can download it and listen. But at the end of the day, now Donald Trump, FISA was used against him. 702 was used against President Trump big time. Trump spoke out against it over and over and over. But now President Trump flips on 702. Once burned by FISA, now he, quote, demands renewal. President Donald Trump is urging all Republicans to unite behind a, quote, clean extension of FISA Section 702. That's the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act authority, if you will. It's basically supposed to expire on the 20th. So let's see. We got like 5 days. Why on earth would Trump flip-flop on this? I thought this was what we were going to use to go ahead and start arresting people for their criminal activities like Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, all these people that made the false dossier on Donald, used 702 against him, spied on him when he was a candidate, spied on him when he was president. I mean, I can keep going. But now Trump backs the very same law that abused him and abuses countless Americans, James.
It really doesn't make sense, and this isn't an issue that enough people are talking about, so I appreciate you for bringing it up with everything else going on. You could see why something like this, which is a little more esoteric, it's not as mainstream of an issue that's being reported on, would get a little bit brushed under the rug. But one of the things that I think, I mean, everybody had soured to some extent on Trump by the end of his first term. And then you just saw what appeared to be, and we'll take it at face value for argument's sake, a really concerted effort to destroy Trump in the Biden years. And then he came back, and I think there was a lot of hope that you would have this, sort of punished Trump. He learned his lesson. He's really going to go after him this time. And to be fair, I mean, that flurry of executive orders when he first got reinaugurated in late January of last year
was really good.
It started off so well, Sam, that it inspired you and I to hold this Will to Power conference where we had elected officials from Europe, Steve King, Lou Moore, Steve Stockman, so many other people come, and we just sort of tap into this momentum. We had a conference very hastily done, but sold out, well-attended, very A-plus style, high-budget conference. In May. So he gets inaugurated in January. A lot of momentum. We want to tap into it, see what we can do to further it. We have this great event in May, and then it was a month later that you had the first bombing of Iran. It certainly put a chill on a lot of that momentum. And then even though as late as December of last year, people were still relatively high on Trump. I had a big feature for the American Free Press newspaper. We interviewed 15 different leaders across the world. And I think on average, Trump ended up at about 6.8 to 7%, 6.8 to 7 out of 10 on the favorability scale. But then this year, you go into this year, and it really has just been an unmitigated disaster across the board. And this thing with 702 that you mentioned is just another shrimp on the Barbie with regard to that. And it seems like all the energy on the right now is a negative energy towards Trump. And I can understand that because he's given us a ton of material to work with. But I still try, and I've never been one to try to play both sides or try to give two sides of an argument if I feel one way or the other. I mean, I'm very authentic and genuine. I'll tell you how I feel and not try to make everybody happy. But with regards to Trump, I mean, you mentioned immigration. There is still some good, at least domestically, that people can point to and say, hey, if he wasn't here, it would be much worse here. It might be just as bad everywhere else, but it would be much worse here. Deportations, he's left a lot to be desired. A disaster in Minneapolis, the way that was handled. But with regards to border crossings, that has been nipped in the bud almost to zero. And then with asylum cases in the court, Sam, this is key. People aren't talking about this either. With asylum cases, asylum seekers who get into the courts, they were being let in at a rate of a little bit more than 60% under Obama and Biden. With Trump now, it's down to 7%. So there is some good, a lot of bad, and how do you tell the difference, and what do you choose to focus on? That's a good question.
Well, and he's also doing some good, too. We hear the Justice Department now might go beyond commuting the sentences of the Proud Boys and of our good friends. But time will tell about that. When I say the Proud Boys and good friends, some of them I know, some of them I don't know. But we're talking about Oath Keepers, too. But, hey, I'm just wondering what on earth is going to happen here, folks, because the midterms are going to be, I hate to say this, but I don't know what's going to happen here, but I don't see how the Republicans hold on to anything. It'll turn Dawn into a super lame duck. All right, God save the Republic of the United States of America.